Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Market Mindset. Today, we're speaking with the Executive Chairman and CEO of Desert Mountain Energy, Robert Rohlfing. This is always great to catch up with them because they're putting together so many different things. Not only is this originally started out as a helium story in the Holbrook Basin, which we're coming back into shortly. It's a big, longer story about innovation, resilience, the energy transition, doing things clean and green. And we're getting to tie in all of this along with infrastructure, data centers, AI. It's this whole vertical integration. It's a bigger conversation. And I wanted to just give a little background as to what they primarily are, which is in the space of gases, helium, noble gases, as well as natural gas. And specifically in regards to this news release about this power generation becoming an operator on a power system. Robert, it's great to catch up with you. A lot to talk about. We'll let you kind of take it from here, but I know you're awfully busy behind the scenes with many things on the go.
Well, thank you. It's good to get back together with you. And I'll say I'm tickled to death that I finally get to start doing press releases that are meaningful. And it's nice to be able to, that you give me an opportunity to expound upon them a little bit. You know, the press releases, it was great, but there's more to it than just a very short blurb. You know, so when we announced before that we were dealing with Sustany, and we're going to be working with them for for helium and nat gas for AI center. Well, now it's beyond that. Now we signed with their actual holding company for the Roswell Information Park. So if a lot of folks are used to seeing warehouses, and you could have a bunch of different companies in them for different aspects. Well, here, this is for AI and data centers. So if you think of it from a development aspect from there, what it does, what we signed, it gives us a way to sell the natural gas instead of going down other pipelines eventually and going somewhere else. It's going to be sold local. It will go to fire gas turbines to generate electricity for the data center. Now, they are starting out, as previously announced, at 100 megawatts power per day. That is equivalent to the power for approximately 100,000 homes. So it's not something small. And requires more, obviously, it requires more nat gas than what we are currently producing. We can increase our production, but at least we have a long-term for life of the field home to go for it. You know, again, getting back to the total number of homes, residences in Roswell, it's 36,000. Yeah. So this is a significant increase that they have to have in power. That's where they're starting, and they've already said that they will ramp up to well in excess of 500 megawatts. So those two, there's actually 4 pipelines, high pressure pipelines that cross our properties. And there's existing taps, and they'll have to add taps. But what it's going to be doing, we'll be selling them our gas, and we'll be in charge of selling them the rest of the gas for all of their power generation. So it puts us into a long term to where it's not just this one little aspect of selling. Well, yeah, and it's nice because we'll get paid more for the gas than what we have been, but it gets us to a long-term situation, and we'll also be making money on the nat gas, all the natural gas that they're purchasing that's coming out of the pipeline. So it gives a home for also stranded gas. You know, last week on CNBC, there was discussion about Trump signing, and he did some interviews where he was talking about he's going to be signing, or he was mulling over signing an additional executive order or orders to help get coal, which we're not into coal. I'm not looking to go to coal. We don't have any leases for coal, so that's not our business. Our business is helium, and then the regular nat gas, methane.
But we need more than double I told Jensen, I told Tim, I told everybody that's building these very big, incredible plants, really plants of the future. They were talking about hooking into the grid. I said, well, the grid is old and it's subject to mishap. Things can happen, including storms and much worse than storms. And if you want, I'll let you build your own utility plant, your own electric plant along with your building. You can build it inside of the plant or you can build it outside of the plant. And I went to Lee Zeldin right here and I said, Lee, we got to get fast approvals for these people. They're going to do the best job. They're going to have the best engineers, the best everything. We'd like to have them build their electric for them. They don't have to go outside. You become a utility. You become a great producer of electric. And if you have any extra, you put it back into the grid if you want, or you sell it back in.
It gives us a home for that, but then these other people where they're stranded nat gas in other places in New Mexico, there's pipeline capability, and it's going to come down the pipelines that cross our property. Okay. So it gives us a way, it's going to help out a lot of other people. And so for the overall picture, yes, it really will help us, but there's a lot of small operators out there. And like last winter, when there are some people that are on a specific natural gas hub in the Permian Basin, they went negative on the pricing. We never did. We always got paid something. And as far as to answer the next obvious question, people want to know, well, what does this mean? Dollars and cents, Robert.
Yeah.
It's not a preset price, but it will be a significant increase. I think of last winter or last summer when we got paid, I think it was 36 or 37 cents an MCF for one month. So when we get into pricing, it will be a huge magnitude and really increasing the amount of money we get from the nat gas. Now, it also automatically gives us a built-in customer there for helium. The other aspect too, because we will be, it requires us to put and to build specific aspects and assets to get that gas, the few miles, literally. In some cases, we actually have wells in the middle of part of their property even. So, but it has to be processed. So it has to go up, be produced, processed, and come back. The way with the economic development for state and federal funds and the people that are bringing in the money from offshore and for the data center and the development, it really reduces how much that what our CapEx is going to be. We haven't come up with the final version of it yet, but it's not going to be, it'll be a very manageable amount. And there are federal grants available for specific aspects of that. And we have to finalize the applications for those and work closely with Sandia. And in fact, the name of the park there, as previous said, is the Roswell Information Park. And so it will expand for other people in AI and data centers. So it expands on that. And there will be, like last week, there's a company announced they're going to be working with a major chip manufacturer in Phoenix. And they were going to be putting in AI and robotics right next door. Well, there's a company that one of their sub-companies, I believe, will be coming into, they're exploring coming into this industrial park, information park, and they'll be doing some work there. So there's a combination of different assets coming in from different areas. Vast majority of it's coming in from offshore the U.S. So it meets the president's goal of trying to get the reinvestment, and this coming from countries that committed to doing that. So he will probably be writing some more executive orders, would be my guess. I'm not the president. I don't talk to him on a daily basis. But within the government, the people who we've been talking to, because we have to deal with a number of issues that include State Departments and how we work with the helium sale. Obviously, if the federal government's putting up the majority of the money, we are going to commit to them that they're going to be the number one buyer, which means White Sands Missile Base, Los Alamos National Laboratories, or Sandia National Laboratories. Now, I brought up Sandia last, and actually they're first, because earlier this year I've mentioned Sandia before in other press releases, and a lot of people, all I could suggest, Google Sandia National Labs. You want to get an idea of what they do and their importance, Google it. Now, when they invited me to come over in February and meet with the people, it was interesting. Then also, one of the other aspects, when we get into additional, whether it be in Arizona or here in New Mexico, because they're a government agency, they will supply us with engineering at no cost on certain aspects if we're running into other aspects. Okay. So, like for power generation, there's two major gas turbine manufacturers in the world. I mean, there's 16 of them, but there's two major ones. So obviously, the information park is not going online tomorrow. You have to order things. They have to do build out. So part of our nat gas will be helping on in between power generation for them. So there's a whole number of things that we have to coordinate with the governmental agencies. And thus far, everybody has been really extremely helpful. The local folks there and the state of New Mexico, and for the U.S. government, the people we've dealt with, a lot of meetings in depth, they have been very, very helpful. And we still have to jump through all the hoops to get there, and there's a lot of documentation that one has to go through, and that's fine. So we've done that, and we will continue to do that to meet these goals.
Goes without saying, I mean, the city of Roswell will get a massive influx of capital, awareness, jobs coming to there for such a major project. And if I'm hearing correctly, you tell me if I'm wrong here, as far as DME is concerned, you're not responsible for any guarantee of the build out of the plant. You're going to operate it. So there's no strain on your balance sheet. No. You're going to be able to sell into this project, the nat gas, and there might be like tie-in for the wells, but you're then opening up not only for all of your assets to grow upon, but also to other companies out there that are smaller. But you're also going to be in charge of that contracting, because it's going to be a significant amount, especially if they consider to grow this thing. Like if they start out at 100 megawatt and they grow, you guys will be tasked with that contracting of finding suppliers, and there's an opportunity there for DME to make some money as well. So there's multiple avenues where your risk will be obviously outages, compliance, any efficiencies for operations, but it isn't in the build. It isn't in the engine. It's not those parts.
No.
So it's a very interesting way to get a lot of flow of revenue in, sell your product, get kind of offtake or long-term contracts in. You're probably not going to know the exact pricing of things, but what you've kind of suggested, the pricing for your nat gas is going to be significantly better than what we saw, say, last quarter of what came in.
Well, based on what our last price on gas we got paid, it'll be about 5 times as high.
Okay, yeah. So just that alone,
is and it's like the other thing. A lot of people who are not in natural gas business don't understand that there's a lot of deducts, and it varies across where you're at in the U.S. And people like to charge for compression and deduct for this and that. Well, by the time the natural gas is coming through our plant, we're selling clean nat gas. And the way our contract states, normally if you're going into a high pressure line, depending on which high pressure line you're specifically talking, where it would be going, which market and what their requirements are, they each have very specific sets, specifications for the gas. since we're going to be going to what will be run through gas turbines, we have to clean it up to a fairly clean state. Our plant already does that.
Yeah.
And the gas coming out of the pipeline will be already to spec. So it's not adding a bunch of additional costs to it. Now, obviously, when they start expanding, that's a whole lot more nat gas. So obviously, we have already entered into discussions with major gas suppliers and marketing companies. And so I would not be surprised to see a very large gas marketing company we're going to be working with for that build out, or well, for the build out of nat gas supplies. And that's fine because they're used to dealing with all of that, how
Yes.
they need the transportation, how it gets, and that's fine. And they have I don't need to recreate the wheel. It's a service they do. That's how they make money. It's in effect how we're going to make money.
Yes. And in that case, because you're the operator, like you don't need to make the full amount of like an OTC trade or direct trade. Is that you could get pennies on the dollar for the amount of volume you're doing, and it'd be a significant income as it's expanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And and it's like, how do we deal with like helium? Because that's still my base business, but this will be great. This will become a very large, important aspect of it. But for the helium, it still gives us, like in Arizona, when we come back into Arizona later this year to drill, we already had off takers, people wanting to come.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people, because they're not familiar with the business. And I've said before, most companies, if you have a product, XYZ, you've got to get it to some other company. You've got to get it to an end user. Well, here, it's already there. And by dealing, when we come back into Arizona, because with this, basically, we had already set up 5 years ago. I'd set up our SAM account, for same day pay numbers with the Fed.
Yep.
This just expands it and locks it into what we'll be working with Sandia National Labs and White Sands Missile Base. The people that we're working with right now, we don't have to worry about liquefaction of it now. This will be always just gaseous state is all. And if they get to a point where they don't have to, there's enough other existing off-takers in Arizona and here in New Mexico that both want it. They will put the trucks, the trailers out there. So we're still remaining within my original goal of not having to deal with transportation costs.
Yes.
And we're not building a huge pipeline for helium or any of that. So it maximizes the rate of return for our shareholders.
And people are obviously very excited to getting back into Roswell. And it's under that also bigger conversation, which remind me too of the critical gases aspect, like helium becoming a critical gas. That discussion, which has been going on for well over a year and a half, of trying to get that added to the list. That all of that's kind of some of the behind the scenes work that's being done. Whenever it seems like DME's awfully quiet, it's like, well, there's been a lot of stuff that's constantly in the works, being worked on behind the scenes to make everything come together.
When you're trying to, like last year when we started out in the U.S. Congress with a bill to get helium put back on, not on a critical minerals list because it's not a mineral.
Nope.
It's a critical element. So that we got through with that. Then in March, when the president made it, it was listed as critical elements. Other critical elements was the wording. Well, the behind the scenes on that, what that is, it told USGS and BLM, this is what it is. We want this. And this is, by going further with this, I think it would be likely to whom we're dealing with there within national labs. That's the United States military defense, and that's fine. I'm not worried about them paying their bills to us, irrespective of what other politics going on. I'm not worried about that. We will be able to get paid immediately for it.
Yes.
And they will be putting money out in good faith for, certain aspects of development in New Mexico and whatnot. So that's fine.
And then also to tie things also together is that there is, with Sustaining too, there's interest in the hydrogen aspect too with the Macaulay field, where they're looking at possibilities or entertaining considerations on that level as well.
For both hydrogen in Arizona and New Mexico, one of the things that the Roswell Park has wanted to do, Sustaining wanted to do, they have now directed us, and so we're going to be working. They want us to go. We've identified specific structures where to go after hydrogen. There's a couple wells that have produced hydrogen for 42 years. So we know, and you can see it in elevating in differing amounts off the gas test that we have to do every year. So you know where that is. We've now had enough time to and look geologically to have a better idea of what the structuring is, what's going on downhole in the basement as far as hydrogen production. And then since there'll be a white hydrogen, the biggest thing about hydrogen is can you do it cost effectively without government subsidies?
Yes.
And that's the key. Well,
yes.
They want us to go after it, and they're paying for it. In the same way, now you get into Arizona, as far as hydrogen, it still comes back to, well, you can turn it into ammonia. We're stripping off clean nitrogen, so we don't even have to strip it out of the air. And ammonia is 1 part hydrogen, 3 parts nitrogen, basically. There's rail. We can just load it in and take it 18 miles, put it on a rail car, or it can go on trucks. Ammonia can go down the road, shipped all the time on trucks. So it's done safely. So even without going into just staying in the gaseous state and trying to deal with it for just either trucking, there's a very large trucking hub that's being finished up here west of Phoenix. And that is basically set up to deal with the California mandates where everything's coming in and out of the port has to be on zero net, carbon.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with, so those people are building that there. They've run into some issues. They're in the middle of the desert and they're trying to generate green hydrogen.
This is pretty interesting because it's not only is there an accretive value, like a stored up value and an accretive value, but also there's a lot of the strategic partnerships like that you put together early on, and they're becoming solidified and realizing now, especially with this announcement, is that there's a lot of this infrastructure play is now being realized at real time rather than, hey, we're working on this and this is where we're at. And that is a big step. Mm-hmm. This final, listen, it's starting to move forward now. We've got this data center, and this data center has high hopes, big dreams, and it ties in all these aspects that we see in the news all the time, which is like critical elements, metals, minerals, things that we are important for the West, especially from a defense standpoint. With the amount of interesting aspects of gases that are noble gases that you guys have, it ties in all of the infrastructure and AI, robotics, and all of these things that require these things. And it really kind of highlights, the question I always ask was, well, you're going to do all these cool tech things. Where are you getting the stuff from? Where are you getting the ingredients from? And this is part of the solution that the overall federal government is saying, yeah, where are we getting this? We have this already. Who do we need to work with? So it's really cool to see behind the scenes all of this work that has to be done in order to get what they want, which and what end users need.
Right. And Sustaining, they're looking because of the hydrogen aspect, not only in New Mexico, but in Arizona. So we actually have a third aspect of they want to expand because we own quite a bit of acreage in Northeast Arizona. south of Winslow in the McCauley field.
Yep.
And we already have excess power out there. So how we would be working with that, they were looking to expand and build additional solar facility, tie into the existing and ever expanding wind farms to the south of us there. So they are not going to be building the same size AI data center up there, but they are looking to put in a data center. Now they're going to do they're going to finish up the design on the part for New Mexico. And then before they finish the build out, then what they're looking at is doing the design and build out here in Arizona. So how you incorporate all that, it gives us a home for all of our products, because that's the number one thing. If you can create something, but who's going to buy it? And
Yes.
How much is it going to cost to get to market? Well, again, it gets down to the worst, even better, if you're not turning any energy turned into ammonia and they're using it for fuel cells, fine.
Yeah. And that's pretty wild, because there is that technology, especially with the hydrogen fuel cells, that are developing at a very fast rate too, as well. We won't get into that because that's a bigger, longer conversation that will be on for too long. But just to kind of recap, what do you see is so exciting about this step, and then what other kind of steps are you hoping to see in the next couple of weeks too? I know those two questions kind of loaded, but maybe kind of tell us what this deal means to you, Robert, as the CEO and chairman of DME. And then what should we be paying attention to as well, keeping our eyes open?
It gets us back to going forward in a meaningful way without a bunch of dilution. It's finally getting back to where we can get meaningful ROIs for the shareholders. That is ultimately who I have to answer to. And I still, like normally, I always say this, I've paid for every single share that I own. I was not here when they got passed out for free. I didn't get founder shares. I bought every single share I own out of the market, and I've never sold a single share. I'm locked in. I am committed big time to this company. So for me, long term, it makes it, it'll make for a nicer retirement. Or for the wife and kids, that type. There's so many more things that can be done positively with that.
Yes.
But that's on a personal aspect. But as far as how it can help other people and grow other people, it brings in wherever a data center is, and then also with oil and gas, and to expand operations in both New Mexico and finally come back to Arizona and put that online and show certain governmental agencies what can be done in a correct manner.
Yes.
And they've missed out on, in my opinion, they've missed out on a great boon for the economy. That should have already been happening, but it's a different timing. I'm not in charge of that timing, but it's good that we're going forward now. So over the next things to look at, it will be interesting to see what additional EOs get signed coming out of DC shortly. I don't know. Again, they don't call and ask me for my opinion on what to put into an EO. That's not, but it's nice to see that the infrastructure for the overall market of materials and required metals and materials marketing, the commodities market. I think we're really looking at a big resurgence of that, because there's so many aspects that are critical to AI and just data centers, everything that goes with it. And it's a great boon. And we're looking at, both in Arizona, Winslow, there's not a large town, and there's people it can draw from that will put in meaningful, high-paid jobs. It won't be the same number that are being put in to New Mexico, but all of these things work together to help drive the economies for both states. And it's nice to see where the state of Arizona has come around greatly, and because they have a better understanding of exactly who we are, what we're trying to do. We weren't trying to just willy-nilly go out and throw holes in the ground and pollute and do it. We're not bad people. You know, we designed before rules and regulations to make them as strict as we put on ourselves to protect things.
Yes.
And that's I've always said I sleep good at night from that aspect, that I know that we have done everything and gone above and beyond to protect the environment and protect groundwater for long term. And that's important.
Yes, absolutely. And this just kind of reminded me, and I know I said that was the last question, but there's one more, is the time frame of this plant as well. We're not talking like a 3-year build out, or it's in 5 years or something like that. Because I'd asked you that earlier on before we went live here recording. What I mean, it's a build out, so we can't say exactly how long it's going to be, but it isn't something that's way off in the future, 3 years down the road. This is near term.
No, because what they're looking at doing is probably breaking ground. They have some other permits that they're working on, and they will break ground before they have all the permits for some of the power generation aspects. They have commitments on those, but it's like, exactly when will all the gas turbines be there? You can build this, but you don't have the power. And so working with the local power company, we're engaged with them. And so there's so many different aspects to this. In effect, we're becoming we're going to have a sub-utility company, little one, very small. But it'll, for us, a company our size, it'll be very meaningful for supplying natural gas to that aspect. And that's it wasn't my original intent of going there, but it's something that's come out and it's very helpful.
And it still ties into the overall helium story and hydrogen story, especially when you're back in later on in the year. It isn't like it's a total deviation that it's like, wait, this isn't the business that you're in. It's like, no, it is. This is all still part of the same business, and it's still vertically integrated.
That's it. And so why we were invited, to go across the pond, as I call it, was because the way we chose to do environmentally drill responsibly here for things. So those aspects will build out over there also, because everybody keeps commenting about how small, how tight our plant is. It doesn't take up, half a mile.
Yes.
We're talking about under 2 acres.
Yes.
It's so small, and you're not putting up buildings that you have to destroy eventually. You're not making big messes. Yep. It's just, it can be done if you want to. And that has been our goal. It's been my desire from the way I've operated in the past. I want to do this. We can do it correctly. Just do it.
Yes. That's great. It's a modest footprint, environmental footprint, but also just spatially, and less of a reclamation commitment in the back end as well. Whenever you don't have massive amounts of water use, land use, this use, that would drive a lot of attention from genuine partners that are looking to do things cleanly, green, responsibly, sustainably, that are looking for all these solutions while trying to get things done quickly. Because that's the other point. We want to get projects going and get them going. Mm-hmm. And you need to find the right partners that aren't just kind of talking, just kind of yapping. It's like, no, you've shown and proved that you're working above regulations, and that gets seen. Even when we don't feel like we're being seen, as you're realizing, you get seen and noticed by other people, even if they're across the pond. They're reaching out because they're going, we're watching what you're doing and we're paying attention, and that's a big compliment.
Well, thank you very much for the chance to visit with you today. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Robert. We'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy the summer.
Thank you.